It's a chilly Halloween night in the forest. The cabin glows under the orange moonlight. Grizzy lounges on his chair with a steaming mug of cocoa, ready for a peaceful night. But outside, the lemmings are up to something weird. They've found a mysterious glowing pumpkin in the woods, with strange runes carved into it. When they roll it into the cabin, the pumpkin suddenly pulses with energy, whoosh, releasing a swirl of glowing mist that engulfs everyone. When it clears, Grizzy opens his eyes and realizes he can now move objects with his mind. The lemmings giggle, because they also got abilities. One can float, another can multiply, another shoots candy sparks from its paws. The night has officially gone crazy. Grizzy tries to use his new telekinesis to clean up the mess, but the lemmings turn it into a game of superpower tag. They fly, bounce, and zoom around the cabin, knocking over honey jars and decorations. Grizzy roars, trying to control his powers, but he accidentally launches his own chair into the ceiling. Later, the lemmings discover that the pumpkin glow came from a Halloween wizard kit left behind by campers. It includes a bubbling cauldron, glowing potions, and a spellbook full of wild recipes. The lemmings jump right in, literally. They mix every potion together, turning the room into a sparkling storm of colors. Grizzy storms in, furious, but the moment he steps on the glowing floor, poof, his fur turns purple and he grows bat wings. He flaps around in panic, crashing into walls while the lemmings laugh hysterically. The lemmings now wear tiny witch hats, brewing candy potions that make them grow, shrink, and teleport. Grizzy decides to use his telekinetic power to stop them, but his control slips again, lifting the entire cauldron and pouring it all over the cabin. Now the whole house is enchanted. Floating furniture, glowing pumpkins, and flying candy bats zooming around. The chaos spills outside as the lemmings' potion leaks out the door and seeps into the forest soil. Trees start to float, mushrooms giggle, and rivers of candy flow through the woods. Grizzy, now half bear, half bat, tries to catch the lemmings before they make things worse. But the lemmings have formed a spooky parade, wearing costumes. One's a ghost, one's a mummy, one's a pumpkin superhero, and they're floating through the forest like a glowing carnival. As Grizzy chases them, the lemmings find a huge ancient totem that's reacting to the same magic. They press a button on it, and zap. The totem awakens a giant candy monster made of jelly and chocolate. It starts stomping through the forest, grabbing everything sticky and sweet, including Grizzy's honey jar. Determined to save his honey, Grizzy teams up with the lemmings, reluctantly. Using their new powers, they form a goofy superhero squad. Grizzy the Bat Bear, and the Lemmings of Chaos. They try a dozen silly plans. The lemmings shoot candy sparks, Grizzy lifts trees telekinetically, but the monster keeps reforming. Finally, the lemmings realize the solution is hidden in the pumpkin's rune. They need to reverse the magic. Working together, sort of, they lure the candy monster back to the cabin, where the glowing pumpkin still sits. Grizzy focuses all his power, while the lemmings channel their candy sparks. Boom! A bright light explodes, and everything returns to normal. Grizzy opens his eyes, covered in jelly, holding his honey jar. The lemmings lie in a candy pile, giggling. The pumpkin sits dark and harmless now, or so it seems. The forest is peaceful again. Grizzy sits outside, licking honey off his paw, watching the moonlight. The lemmings snooze nearby, surrounded by leftover candy and potion bottles. But then, one curious lemming pokes the pumpkin again, Bo P, and its eyes glow faintly red. Grizzy's eyes widen as the ground trembles softly. He groans, "Not again." The camera zooms out as the forest flickers with orange light and laughter echoes through the night. The next morning, the forest looks peaceful again. Birds chirp, the mist fades, and Grizzy finally thinks Halloween is over. He yawns, stretches, and drags himself to the fridge for breakfast. The cabin is a total mess. Candy stuck to the walls, glowing footprints everywhere, and a cauldron upside down in the sink. He sighs and mutters, "Maybe, just maybe, no more magic pumpkins." But behind him, the lemmings are wide awake. They're trying to open the pumpkin again, this time wearing tiny goggles and lab coats like scientists. One lemming pokes it with a stick, another shines a flashlight inside, and a third taps it like a drum. Suddenly, the pumpkin twitches. A tiny spark of magic glows from its eyes. Grizzy freezes mid-bite. Don't you dare. Too late. The lemmings cheer and press both eyes at once. Boom. A burst of colorful smoke fills the room, and when it clears, the cabin has completely transformed into a haunted candy castle. The furniture turns into chocolate, the fridge into an ice cream freezer, and the walls shimmer with jelly. Grizzy groans, "I just cleaned this place." While the lemmings slide down syrupy staircases, laughing hysterically. Now, everyone's powers are back, but stronger. Grizzy can float objects effortlessly, the lemmings can clone themselves by touching candy, and the entire cabin starts to lift off the ground. The floating candy castle hovers above the forest like a glowing UFO, spinning slowly. Down below, deer and birds stare in shock as pieces of candy rain down. The lemmings start throwing chocolate from the windows like confetti. Grizzy desperately tries to steer the cabin, but the steering wheel is a giant cookie, and the brakes are made of marshmallows. Grizzy grabs a giant honey spoon and starts scooping candy clones out of the air, trying to regain control. No more powers. No more pumpkins. No more candy, he roars, but deep down, his laugh. Finally, he spots the original pumpkin glowing in the center of the floating room. With one last telekinetic effort, Grizzy lifts it up, shouts, "Back to normal," and smashes it into a glowing puff of sparkles. The magic instantly vanishes. The cabin drops gently back to the ground, landing in a pile of leaves. Everything returns to normal once again, except for one detail. The lemmings now have faint glowing eyes and tiny pumpkin tattoos on their fur. Grizzy stares suspiciously as they pretend to sleep. HMPH. "I'll keep my eye on you little pumpkins." He sits down, exhausted, sips his honey cocoa, and smiles. Outside, the moon glows one last time, forming a pumpkin face in the clouds. A soft giggle echoes through the forest. The lemmings' mischief never ends. It's midnight again. The forest is silent, bathed in blue moonlight. Grizzy snores peacefully on his couch, dreaming of endless honey jars. The lemmings, meanwhile, are sleeping all over the cabin, stacked like marshmallows, snuggled in candy wrappers. Everything seems finally calm. Until, a soft humming starts coming from the corner of the room. The shattered pumpkin pieces on the shelf begin to glow, thump, 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 pulsing like a heartbeat. The pieces slowly slide together, reforming themselves into a smaller, cuter mini pumpkin spirit. The mini pumpkin opens its glowing eyes, giggles quietly, and floats through the cabin. It looks around curiously, then spots the sleeping lemmings. With a mischievous grin, it waves its tiny vine hand, and zap, gives each lemming a spark of leftover magic. One by one, the lemmings' eyes pop open, glowing neon blue. They whisper to each other, giggle, and sneak outside. The forest lights up again, but this time, it's different. Instead of chaos, they begin to decorate the forest like a magical festival. They hang glowing pumpkins from the trees, light up candy torches, and paint the rocks with funny monster faces. The forest becomes a glowing wonderland, the Great Lemming Halloween Fair. When Grizzy wakes up and looks outside, he's stunned. The trees shimmer orange and purple, the rivers sparkle like soda, and the lemmings are dancing in formation to spooky music, wearing mini capes and hats.